Hopefully we all know that running a functioning society takes an amount of capital. Today, that sort of capital tends to be, well, human, as well as what you might consider more literal capital.
$200 a day, 365 days a year. Since you were 12, that's 2 decades of times 20, which is 1,460,000, I think. I mean, I am just a dumb bunny, but we are good at multiplying.
But it's not always the case. In the times of the kings and emperors and pharaohs, well, they didn't always have currencies to take on the exchange value that our money does, but even then they still had systems whereby the incredibly wealthy and always fair rulers of their lands would request some amount of money as, some form of offering to show that they're still loyal to their whomever is in charge, as well as to help manage and upkeep the needs of the city, state, country, empire, what have you.
It's not too much, is it?
No.
Where this idea dates all the way back to the ancient Egyptians, or at the very least that's when it's first seen historically, as the Egyptians had a tithing system, where tithing refers to giving up 10% of some value for whatever it is you make. So if you tended a field of grains, then you would give 10% of your grains to the pharaoh. If you had a flock of sheep, you'd give 10% of them to the pharaoh. If you had a textile mill, then you would give some amount of clothes to him, and whatever else it happened to be that you happened to do for your money, that's what you did. Where if you didn't have, well, not money, but you get the idea, where if you didn't have enough of those resources to cover it, you'd fall into what was known as a corvée system of forced labor, wherein you would be allotted what I'm sure must have been a fair and never corrupt amount of work, either helping build pyramids or maintain the roads or whatever else the pharaoh or taxman said you had to do in order to prove that you were willing to cover those costs. And this sort of system makes sense. It stayed in for many societies, through many societies, up till we get to more monetary times where we are actually exchanging values in gold and silver and other precious metals, like in the times of the Roman Empire, where, in times of peace, they would collect 1% on a modest estimation of your wealth and property, and then in times of war, that value might get up to 3%. And those small amounts of taxes were what a lot of societies would request of their people, where some would go a little bit above that. One particularly known example is Wang Mang of the Jin Dynasty, dated to about 10 in the Common Era, or AD if you prefer, who tried to put in a 10% tax on the efforts of skilled laborers. This, among with some other ambitious but failed ideas like nationalizing the agricultural land of the empire and abolishing slavery, and also some genuine misfortune with the Yellow River flooding, didn't do a whole lot to make him popular with the people, and certainly not among the ruling class below him, and his reign would only last about 13 years before he was overthrown. Now, a lot has changed since the time of the Roman and Chinese empires, but you can still say that trying to increase taxes or claiming that you're not going to mess with taxes tends not to be very popular if you can't keep those promises, even still.
Congress will push me to raise taxes and I'll say no, and they'll push and I'll say no, and they'll push again and I'll say to them, read my lips. No new taxes.
And for that matter, it is kind of worth mentioning that, well, despite the fact that we don't have very wealthy families definitely ruling us at all times and behind a lot of important decisions, somehow, magically, income inequality is by some measures about as close as it was with the Roman Empire, and, well, things tend to go badly when income inequality is that stark. Not good, but also not a topic for this class or this work here. What we're looking at here is a specific kind of taxation called income tax, where the first income tax in particular was said to be the Saladin tithe of 1188, used by Henry VIII to help fund the Third Crusade, where an income tax is specifically one that is levied on your incoming wealth, the amount of money you make in a given period of time. For us, it's 1 year. I don't know exactly what it was in the time of Henry II. Did I say Henry VIII? I think I said Henry II, but I might have said Henry VIII. Not that one. Different Henry. There are too many of them, though. But it is kind of funny to think that income taxes through history have always gone to wealth and defense, but you can actually see where some of our money goes today to understand that there are very useful things that our tax dollars go to. Much like with the sales taxes we talked about before, usually a good chunk of that, a plurality of your tax dollars, will actually go towards health and social programs, things that are actually very useful to common people and not just the interest of people who want oil money. Again, topic for a different class, I'm getting ahead of myself. Where every person in the United States pays a federal income tax, but there are some states that don't have a state income tax, including ours, Florida, along with Alaska, Nevada, South Dakota, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. Where you may notice in that diagram that I showed earlier that the top right corner in there represents my money, because I, as a state employee, do get paid through taxes, albeit a bit circuitously. I don't pay my own salary. I don't think. Maybe I do in a sense, but that is where state employees in education get their funding as well, where generally the amount of money that you end up paying, as well as the amount of money that your job will withhold, is the sort of thing that's determined by your W-4, a form that shows your tax history, as well as how much money you've been making over the last few years, where we'll see that there's quite a bit that goes into how taxation is determined by person. A lot of that's not handled on your end, to be fair, but it is worth understanding where it comes from, and that's what we're going to spend a lot of our time in here talking about.